I ran into him, and he said, well, he said it just wasn't running too well, was it? Meaning that he just wasn't able to get it together. And certainly wasn't his fault, you know.
That same day, George Cukor went so far as to slip news to gossip columnist Hedda Hopper that Marilyn was being removed from Something's Got to Give, and that her career in Hollywood was over.
He finally just felt so frustrated and had done everything in the world to keep that production going that he was upset, but he absolutely agreed that there was no way to go on. She was not responding to the scenes. Swimming in a pool, playing with kids, that's all fun, but that's not going to make a movie.
On June 8, 2 days after the meeting, Marilyn Monroe was officially fired.
She was very upset. It's a very emotional thing to have a studio fire you and tell her she'll never work again in this town, and her career is finished. I mean, you know, this was a terrible shock, terrible shock.
Nobody else that I know of could have gotten away with as much as she did on this picture. There would have been decisions made long before they were on this.
I think they just said, we've had it. We got Elizabeth Taylor and Rome running that show, and we got Marilyn running this show, and you got the inmates running the asylum.
Fox still hoped to salvage the picture and quickly approached other actresses as possible replacements for Monroe. After Kim Novak and Shirley MacLaine turned down the role, Lee Remick was fitted for Marilyn's costumes. On hearing that Remick would be his new co-star, Dean Martin officially handed in his own resignation.
I said, you know, you better look at Martin's contract, which you guys negotiated. I didn't. And it says, if Marilyn is replaced, he needs approval of the star. Otherwise, he's not going to do the picture. And, of course, that's what happened.
Dean insisted no Marilyn, no picture. On June 11th, letters went out to the entire cast and crew, informing them of their suspension.
I was a little stunned that, first of all, everything came to a stop that day when Dean walked away. And I was put on suspension immediately, and everything, the production stopped then.
I mean, they pulled the plug. I mean, that was it. That was the end of the show. They weren't shooting anymore. That was gone. We were laid off.
That day, 104 people lost their jobs. Fingers were pointed at Monroe. Marilyn was humiliated, and she feared that there might be some truth to the rumors that her career was over. Determined to fight back, Monroe pitted her sexuality, power, and fame against the studio with a storm of publicity. Between June 20th and July 15th, Marilyn spoke candidly with high-profile journalists, including Life magazine editor Richard Merriman.
She'd just been fired. There was this huge uproar going on, and I think that's why she wanted to do the article. She jumped at it. A huge Life magazine essay would absolutely confirm that, in essence, she was still alive. She was still Marilyn Monroe.
In early July, Merriman conducted 2 interviews at Marilyn's home in Brentwood.
The house was empty. There was virtually no furniture in it. Pat Newcomb was there, so the 3 of us sat around in the middle of this empty room on these straight-back chairs, and we had the interview. It was about a 3-hour conversation. When I arrived for the next, it's about 2 days later, we had a bottle of champagne, and she drank. and she got high, a little high, and suddenly there was a streak of anger that had not been there before. She was angry at the studio. It was just an undercurrent of anger. I think I was seeing closer to where she really was then, which was a very anxious, angry, scared woman.
As Marilyn left that day, Monroe made one last request. She begged the journalist not to make her look like a joke.
I think she finally articulated her deep fear about herself and about this interview. I think she finally said it, don't make me a joke. I think she felt that on some level she was being treated as a joke.
In addition to waging a war of words against the studio, Marilyn continued her personal publicity campaign with pictures. Monroe allowed freelance photographer George Barris unprecedented access to her in a series of revealing photo sessions.
She was in a good mood. Once in a while, she'd stop and maybe think about problems that she's in. And it would bother her, but she snapped out of it very quickly. I think she was afraid her career could be over. And, you know, she worked so hard. And here's a girl that was desperately wanting to be a movie star, not for the money. She just wanted to be famous, and she wanted the world to know her.
The photo shoot continued at a house in the Hollywood Hills, where the star's sudden presence surprised the landlord's housekeeper.
She says, "Is that really Marilyn Monroe coming?" I said, "Yeah." "Would you introduce me?" I says, "Yes, if she agrees to it." So when Marilyn came up, I introduced them. Her name was Louise. I said, "This is Louise Marilyn." And she stuttered and she said, "Are you really Marilyn Monroe?" She says, "I can't believe it." So Marilyn says, "Well, I can't believe it too." She says, "I guess I am. Everybody says I am."
Hundreds of photos were taken over a 3-day shoot. Some of the images revealed the sad, vulnerable, and aging woman behind the actress's platinum blonde hair and makeup, while others celebrated the playful side of America's #1 sex goddess. But Marilyn was doing more to reignite her career than just playing cover girl. Behind the scenes, Monroe was campaigning with her co-stars to get Something's Got to Give back into production.
And a couple of weeks later, I had a telegram from Marilyn asking me if I would be willing to continue with the film, and if she could get the studio to start the film, start it up again. So I told her, of course, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Just weeks after her firing, Fox did an amazing about-face and told Marilyn that they wanted her back. Trade-offs were negotiated and concessions were made on both sides. Marilyn agreed to give up having Paula Strasberg on the set, and in return, director George Cukor would be replaced with Jean Leglesco. On August 1st, Marilyn signed a $1 million 2-picture contract with Fox, and plans were made to resume shooting Something's Got to Give as soon as possible.